Spongic X here, and here we have more custom footage from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Starting off, we have a stage of Isabelle from Animal Crossing. So, I think we're only moments away, or at least, E3 away from finding out more about Animal Crossing for Switch. And who knows what they're going to do with that one, because it seems like every new Animal Crossing game, they have to introduce some new kind of gimmick. Without a doubt, like, the biggest and best change in the series was definitely the 3DS one, where it allowed us to be the mayor of our own city. So, a lot of people are probably wondering, how the heck is Nintendo going to top that? Well, here's one suggestion I have. What if, instead... So, you could either play Animal Crossing the traditional way, playing as a villager, or what if it allowed you to play as the lives of the villagers, the animal villagers, that is. So, there's many ways they could do that. They could either have it where, like, you could have separate save files where you choose your character based off the actual characters from the game, or they could have where you could create your own custom animal character, or possibly base it off a personality quiz or something. I don't know, but gotta admit though, that would be an interesting idea. Playing Animal Crossing from the perspective of the other characters, including like shop owners and stuff like that. So imagine if you were to play the game as KK Slider, what would it be like to be a villager, well, to be KK Slider in Animal Crossing? What would his daily life be? Would he be running away from fans who are obsessed with him? Which would make it more challenging to want to, do, chores and favors for all the other villagers when so many of them are obsessed over you and you gotta start avoiding them. And that, and every Saturday you'd have to, go to like that, you'd have to perform shows and stuff like that, and if you missed them, you would then see like the villagers getting mad at you the next day or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of interesting concepts they could do with an Animal Crossing where you gotta play as multiple playable characters. A day in the life of these characters. If you were Tom Nook, like, what would it be like to have to, you'd have to make sure that everyone is making their house payments and stuff like that. If you were his nephews, you'd have to be running a store, or what if you were the captain, and, like, you had to rely on, like, fishing and getting people across, to different islands and stuff like that. There's just so much potential Nintendo could do if they made Animal Crossing that allowed you to do that. I, for one, would really love to see them attempt doing that somehow. I think it's a little too much to expect that, though. The best they could do is make an Animal Crossing game where you're allowed to be an animal, whether you're making your own or you have to select one of the animals. But I don't see them going as far as having you have to live their actual lives. But, man, wouldn't that be a fun little experiment? Honestly, ever since they introduced Isabelle as a playable character in this game, I just wish they got rid of Villager, because he's just so pointless compared to... Isabelle's such a better playable character compared to him. Here we have Midna from Twilight Princess. Midna, she is one of my absolute favorite Zelda characters. I thought she was one of the most interesting characters in the whole series, and she is one of Link's best companions. And, I loved, like, all the surprise twists with this characters, and darn, her farewell was one of the saddest moments in Zelda history. I hate how they replaced Midna's Lament in this game, though. I liked how in, Brawl, 3DS, and Wii U, well, not 3DS, but Brawl and Wii U, they used Midna's theme from Midna's Lament from Twilight Princess. You know, that was a pretty memorable scene in the game, and the music during that part was really good. But so in this, instead of using the original, they decided to remake it, and I do not like the remake. It sounds nothing like the original. I really love the original version a lot better, where it was just the piano notes and stuff like that. This new version just sounds terrible. That's what really upsets me. It's like, I hate it when they remake songs, but they just don't sound as good or powerful as the originals. I do like how, this version, though, it does have a lot of, for a lot of the remixes, they even include the original versions of the songs as well, but unfortunately they didn't do it for every track. It's, like, more common with, like, the Mario tracks and stuff like that, but... Like, I thought, like, for instance, Super Smash Bros. Melee, I thought, like, that did a really good job at updating a lot of the old songs, making them sound much better than how they sounded on the original console they were from, but I feel like ever since Brawl, some of the remixes just aren't as good. I mean, a few of them are, but most of them they just sound very generic. They just sound like MIDI remakes instead of actual, you know, orchestra quality sounding remakes. I always loved it when Nintendo would take a memorable tune and give it like a grand orchestral score. You know, it's always something so epic about hearing it sounding more epic than it ever sounded. They just don't do that much anymore, unfortunately. They always make simple remixes. I especially hate it when they remix a song that was already orchestrated to begin with and sounded much superior. For instance, in for Green Hill Zone and stuff like that, they have a remix of Spagonia from Sonic Unleashed, and it sounds terrible. It sounds nothing like the original, which was so much better. Or the final battle from Kirby 64 against Zero Two. I thought the music on the N64 version, oddly enough, sounded much better than the remake they made in Brawl. That one sounded terrible, and it's a shame that's the only version we get to hear. I feel like a lot of the music tracks, though, are very poor of choice. Like, some of them are really good, but some of them are like, come on, out of all the songs you could have chosen, why did you choose so many variants of the Super Mario Bros. 1 overworld theme, or the Donkey Kong Country, like, level 1 music, and I mean, there's so many other tracks I would have rather heard from different games. For instance, from Donkey Kong 64, I would have loved to have heard music from, like, Angry Aztec or, Fungi Forest. But, then, with Kirby 64, I would have loved to have heard the music when you fought Miracle Matter, because I thought that was, like, some of the most badass music I've ever heard in a Kirby game. And I do like how they did choose... There are a lot of tracks, though, that I was impressed to see. Oh, they actually did get them for this. Like, Super Mario Odyssey, I loved how they actually have Jump Up Superstar and Lead the Way as music tracks, along with Cascade Kingdom's music. I was glad they chose those, because those were some of my favorite tunes from that game. But then it's like some of the Sonic music, for instance, it's like, okay, why'd they choose this song, but they didn't choose this one? Like, I always thought they should have included It Doesn't Matter from Sonic Adventure, because that's, like, Sonic's theme. Then, it's just, I don't know. But there's a lot of music tracks that, I can't think of all of them out the top of my head, but I know there's a lot of tracks I would have loved for them to have chosen instead of some of the ones they picked. Or, like, for instance, Bayonetta 2, I thought, like, the music that played, like, when you were in, like, the middle of most battles, I thought that was really good, but I hate how in this one it's just, an instrumental version of it. It's just not the same without the vocals. So here's a stage inspired by the original Smash Bros. Logo. Uh-oh. Looks like like a glitch occurred. I have no idea what happened, but apparently King DDD got stuck in the Smash logo after using a Warp Star. Eventually he does break loose, but it'll take a while. Yeah, I've noticed that happens a lot with custom stages. They are just prone to glitches, unfortunately. I have no idea why. Still down there. Oh, he somehow got loose. I don't even know what caused it.
That was nothing.
Okay, how stupid is King DDD? For some reason he keeps jumping for the lava. I mean, come on! That is ridiculous, even for a CPU player. And here we have a stage of Susie from Kirby Planet Robobot. Why are the Kirby villains always so adorable? I also like how they made her a playable character through a free DLC update on Kirby Star Allies, and a lot of her moveset is inspired by a lot of the mech abilities Kirby could use in Kirby Planet Robobot. Yeah, Kirby Star Allies, I know it got a lot of mixed reviews. I personally like the game. Like, yes, I do agree the level variety was kind of underwhelming, but I thought what made up for it was how many playable characters there were. I mean, you know, I actually managed to complete all the, they had like that one mode where you could play as the allies and go through like the entire adventure just as those characters. And so I actually managed to beat the game with every single character, including all the DLC, and that was very time consuming. Holy cow, but yeah, like, people who were saying the game was too short, they clearly did not try to unlock everything, because, if you try, heck, the boss battle mode, that was, trying to beat that on the hardest difficulty was intense, and I was only able to do it because I chose to play as Rock Kirby, and so, Rock Kirby, he's like the best solution you can use. He's like the most evasive character, because when a character comes by with an attack that's hard to avoid, just turn to rock form and wait until the enemy clears way for you to get out of the rock ability. But it's time consuming though, because not only do you have to keep dodging, but you gotta try to use it in a way where it'll hurt the enemies without hurting you. And Rock Kirby does not have the best range when it comes to attack, but that's the safest way of beating it. So, you know, eventually I was able to beat it on the hardest difficulty, and it's like, oh my god, I cannot do this with the other abilities, there's just no way. But, I'd say if there's one, the only real problems I had with Kirby Star Allies was, okay, so, I thought, let's see, I thought the game relied too much on, like, combat segments. It got kind of no, I'm actually okay with the idea of a Kirby game having a lot of combat, but I just thought, I hated how formulaic it became. Like, eventually you come to a room, and then you have to fight off a bunch of waves of enemies, and I would have found it better if they had just separate levels that were designed for, like, you know, fighting off waves of enemy. Heck, even a separate mode, just like enemy wave mode, but having it constantly show up throughout, like, multiple levels gets really tiring. Sometimes you just want to play through a level without having to worry about fighting off a bunch of enemies at one point. And, that being said, though, I did think the combat in this game was very fun. Because, yeah, like, the vintage Kirby games, they weren't very well known for, like, combat. They had very stiff controls. It wasn't until, like, the DS era, I'd say, where, like, Kirby Superstar Ultra is one of the earliest examples I can think of where it improved the combat in the games, where, like, using Fire Kirby, you can actually adjust, like, the trajectory of where, you know, by holding up or down. And, same thing with, like, Fighter Kirby, it actually had, like, better commands, like uppercuts and stuff like that, downward kicks, and, you know, they took it even further when Kirby Return to Dreamland came out for Wii, and ever since, every Kirby game has had more advanced movesets for each ability, and I appreciate that. It makes it hard to go back and play the old Game Boy games when all their commands was just press a button for Kirby to shoot straight forward. So here's a stage based off one of my favorite episodes of SpongeBob Season 1, Opposite Day. I'm Squidward, I'm Squidward, 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 Squidward. I don't know why, that part always cracks me up. So, back to Kirby. Another thing I didn't like about Kirby Star Allies, this was the most annoying issue for me. It was a lot of the segments where you had to, like, do some kind of puzzle solving with, like, teamwork, and it just got very annoying how, like, abruptly these things interrupted a level. It just really dragged a lot of levels down. It especially got annoying when you're trying to play through the guest ally mode, and you had to keep going through them every single time. I mean, the only segments that I thought were alright were, like, the train segments, the Warp Star shooting segments, but, like, the ones where you had to form a bridge, to have, like, an enemy walk across and get the key over, it's like, those were just so stupid. I hated those. They really did not need to be there. But, I'll admit, though, if there's one thing I absolutely admired that somehow Kirby Star Allies was able to accomplish is, okay, so, it's a game from Japan, and games from Japan usually tend to have, like, that really annoying gimmick where, you know, despite how it tries acting all serious, it really ruins the mood when it has to, like, halt everything and give out, like, a friendship speech, you know, hammering in the message about how, oh, we were able to do this because of the power of friendship, and, I mean, like, God, even games like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 had that, you know, like, that's a game that tried being edgier. It had, you know, it had language, it had, more sexual themes and stuff like that, and even that game had those cringy, god-awful friendship messages. Kingdom Hearts 3 couldn't even resist having those, but so, Kirby Star Allies, it's a game entirely involving around the power of friendship, but not once does it actually have a friendship speech. And now, I gotta admit, that was impressive. I was actually amazed by that. Wow, finally, a game from Japan that doesn't have a friendship speech, despite the fact it's all about friendship. So that's how you handle a friendship message. Show the power of friendship without actually explaining it. That's how you do it. Yeah, speaking of what, Kirby Star Allies, I thought that had a very epic final battle. I loved how it turned into like, it's like it almost turned into a completely different game. I mean, it turned into like a lot of Kirby games, yeah, usually the final battles have some kind of shooting segment. That was prominent ever since like Kirby Dream Land, well, Kirby Adventure, I mean, however, this one, they changed it further by not making it a rail shooter. They actually had it more like, where you were controlling it like a vehicle that was going like in all these different directions. So you weren't just like steering left and right, up and down. You were actually, you know, driving forward, left, right, and you even had to like U-turn a few times, and yeah, you even got to rotate the camera. And so that was very different for a game that was mostly just a game where you only moved left and right outside of like the hub world. And it makes me wonder, Nintendo, they're experimenting, aren't they? They're really trying to make a 3D platformer Kirby, aren't they? Because it just seems kind of obvious because of all these different experimental Kirby games they've made recently. I mean, it's especially prominent with a lot of the 3DS games. What was it? I think it was Kirby Planet Robobot, where one of the mini games was like a 3D version where you got to control Kirby in any direction from a top-down view, and you had to suck enemies and spit them out. So it felt like they were trying to take the gameplay of the original Kirby Dream Land, but like reinvent it in a 3D way. And then you look at the hub world and the final battle in Kirby Star Allies, and it seems like, okay, they're trying to experiment with a different style again. And then they even had a 3DS game called, I think it was called Kirby Battle Royale or something like that. And so that one, I didn't really get into that because I don't really like those kind of like overview fighting games. They get very repetitive. But other than that, it's like, okay, they were trying something different with that. So I feel like they're trying to bring Kirby into 3D. They're trying to make a non-side-scroller 3D. But honestly, I think if they are to make a 3D Kirby game, they need to go kind of like a Mario 64 approach. Where like you can control Kirby in any direction. But I could understand they probably want to limit his flight ability though, so that way players aren't just flying around everywhere non-stop. I mean, Kirby 64 even did that. They limited his flight a bit, kind of like Super Smash Bros. Does even. So, yeah, I think if they made like a Mario 64 inspired Kirby game, I would love to see how that would turn out. Like where you have to collect certain things to progress throughout the game, and some of them will require Kirby having a certain copy ability in order to get to it, so you'd have to explore to a certain point of the level to find a certain enemy, and then travel to another end of the level to carry that ability over, and, you know, there's a lot that they could do with that, and I would love to see how they could make a 3D Kirby game like that. And it'd be funny to see, like, how there might be, like, different control schemes for some of these different abilities. Like, for instance, if Kirby were to have Fire Kirby, it'd be interesting to be able to switch to like a third-party shooter kind of mode and have a better job at like aiming with the fire control. Or like when he's Sword Kirby, you can kind of turn it into like a Legend of Zelda-esque control scheme where like if you hold like one of the trigger buttons, it can lock onto an enemy. And that would be pretty fun. I just feel like there's so much they could do with bringing Kirby's copy abilities into a 3D game, because we're so used to playing them in like a 2D format. But you know, a lot of people are probably thinking, well, how would that work? Well, the same could be said about, you know, Mario, Zelda, Metroid, and almost every game in Nintendo's catalog. There was a point where they were all 2D games, and Nintendo found a way to reinvent them with the N64. And so, who's to say they can't do the same with Kirby? I mean, Kirby's mostly been a series that has taken the safe route. I mean, it had a few spin-offs with a bunch of gimmicks, but for the main series, they've mostly just been side-scrolling platformers. And they never really went out of their comfort zone. For some, they like it that way, but for some, they kind of want to see them do more. Like, for one, I love Kirby the way it is, but I'd be lying if I didn't admit I want to see them do something a little different, like, but not like as different as like a Kirby Canvas Curse, because that was personally one of my least favorite Kirby games. I didn't hate it. I just thought it got tiring after a while. I mean, it's fun to play through at first. you know, drawing lines to guide like a little ball Kirby through levels, but it didn't give me a reason to want to go back and keep playing it like the side-scrolling platformers did. So yeah, like I really do want to see them make like a 3D platformer Kirby, because you know I really do love 3D platformers, and especially ones that evolve the platforming gimmick. You know, it's like that's one reason I love Banjo-Kazooie or Ratchet and Clank, because they're more than just Mario 64 clones. They added their own little unique stuff to help them stand out from other games, and I want to see more games do that, because I feel like there's a lot that platformers could do if they brought in more elements. Everyone thinks, oh, platformer just means you have to jump across a bunch of things to get to the end of a level, but that's not the way I see it. I think platformers can accomplish so much more. They just need the right development team and innovation for it to work. That's a problem with, you know, it's like if I could, I wish I could make video games, but the problem is I can only come up with ideas, but I have no idea how to actually program stuff, you know, like I originally wanted to be an animator and I had trouble doing that even, so, if I can't even animate, I cannot make video games, but I tried using like some of those Game Maker things in the past, and I gave up on them. It was just too advanced for me, unfortunately. I'm one of those people where it's like I can think of things, but I can't bring them to life, unfortunately. We have a stage of Rob from, let's probably explain it. Rob from Rob, I guess. The NES accessory. Fun fact, I didn't notice this, but, I'm not sure if this was in the original version, but, the F-Zero racetrack that was included in, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, I noticed how in this game, like, if you, look closely, you'll actually find, like, a giant Rob figure in the background. Like, it's part of, like, one of the buildings. Was that in the original? Because I've never seen anyone point that out, but I thought that was really funny how they somehow hid, like, a giant Rob, like, on a building, and it was so interesting. I'll never forget, like, when I heard, you know, like, when someone first mentioned that Rob was playable in, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, I thought they were talking about Rob 64 from Star Fox. Nintendo even, you know, took a jab at that joke because, in Ultimate, I believe, Rob 64's Spirit Battle had you fighting against Rob, so even Nintendo's aware of the joke. Yeah, you could tell, like, some of the developers of Spirit Mode had a lot of fun, you know, like, hiding in certain references, that only fans would get. Like, for instance, I thought it was really funny how, during Rivali's boss fight from Breath of the Wild, how, of course, they used Falco to be, like, his representative, because everyone was pointing out, like, what's Falco doing in Zelda? Because, yeah, Rivali, he looked too much like Falco. I remember everywhere on the internet, they were just making Falco jokes. I do kind of wonder, though, like, if they, you know, I always wondered, like, if they ever made, added more Zelda characters into Super Smash Bros., what would it be like if we could play as a Goron or a Zora? Like, the N64-inspired ones, especially, because, you know, they'd have movesets inspired by, like, the mask abilities from Majora's Mask, but instead of having it just be, like, Goron Link or Zora Link, just have it be a Zora or a Goron in general. I mean, they could probably have some pretty interesting movesets. Goron would have a bunch of rolling, and he'd basically be like a buff version of Sonic, I guess. He'd have a bunch of rolling attacks, but he'd also have a bunch of close combat punching attacks. Or better yet, just add Darunia, because he's like one of the most iconic, you know, Gorons in the whole series. That's one thing I loved about Hyrule Warriors. It gave you a chance to play as all these minor Zelda characters. Even the ones that seemed very questionable, they ended up being pretty badass. I mean, I actually thought Ruto, the Zora princess, she was actually a very powerful character, and I had a lot of fun playing as her. Just soaking a bunch of enemies in tidal waves and whirlpools. Yeah, that was a pretty fun experience. I'm not gonna lie, like, I got so used to the combat in Hyrule Warriors that I thought the combat in Breath of the Wild felt kind of dumbed down in comparison. I mean, I'm not saying I hated Breath of the Wild, but it's like, I thought the combat in that was kind of boring compared to slaying a whole bunch of enemies as, like, you know, just like with a few swings of a sword like you could in Hyrule Warriors. And a part of me kind of wish you could still do that in Breath of the Wild, but that's the problem with some spin-offs, I guess. They make the characters so overpowered, you kind of want to see them like that in the actual games. I mean, you know, why can't we see Princess Peach acting the way she does in Smash Bros. In the actual Mario games? I mean, I was kind of disappointed at the ending to Super Mario Odyssey. I didn't like how they had, you know, her shun Mario's affections, and, you know, they made it look like she had a hard choice to choose between Bowser and Mario. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? You know how I think Mario Odyssey should have ended? It should have ended with a fun little twist where, like, character development, where, what if, like in the middle of the boss fight, there comes a point where Bowser gains the upper hand and Mario's about to be defeated. So, Peach then, well, Peach's, crown, Tiara, she realizes that she has the same capture ability as Cappy, and so what if then Peach used that to, like, capture, like, some enemies that were surrounding Mario or something? She used them to help fight off Bowser or something, and that would have been an epic way to end the game. Have it where Peach rose up and, you know, she finally broke out of the damsel in distress route and actually helped fight off Bowser, and, you know, she then escapes with Mario. That would have been a much better ending, in my opinion, instead of having her nearly strand Mario on the moon. Because I thought, for the most part, Mario Odyssey was a very epic game, and I thought the ending was very anticlimactic. The build-up to the ending was so good, but the very ending, just like that part where they're on the moon and Peach gets mad at them, nearly strands, I hated that. I'm surprised I actually still like Peach after that, because I was so mad at her at that point, honestly. I just thought Mario really did not deserve that. I like how, you know, the other, you know, not only the post ending, but, like, well, the post gameplay, but even, like, some sequels, but I like how it at least establishes that Mario and Peach are still friends, but I really don't like how Nintendo killed the hype of them being, like, a couple, because for a long time, Mario and Peach were Nintendo's iconic couple, and this game kind of confirmed that Peach doesn't love Mario the same way Mario loves her, and I get it, we're in a different time period apparently, but I don't get why that means that in fantasies we still can't have love interests. Peach can still, you know, Peach can still be a tough, independent person, even if she still loves Mario. I don't get why everyone thinks being a strong, independent woman means they can't fall in love. It's really stupid. It's fantasy, it's not real. Just because a character in a video game or a movie or whatever is in love with a man, that doesn't mean it's some kind of sexist message that every woman should live by, okay? I'm sorry, I'm just really sick of this. It's everywhere nowadays. They act like it's such a crime for there to be a love between a man and a woman. And what's so wrong with that? Here we have Termina Field from Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. You know, like, I don't know how it could be accomplished, but one thing I would love to see in a sequel to Smash Bros. Would be to see, like, more, kind of like more cinematic, kind of like, fighting stages, kind of like the ones you see, like, in the Dead or Alive series, where, you know, like, a certain action or physics interaction can cause, like, the stage to transform in, like, a very cinematic way. I mean, imagine how cool that'd be, like, in one level you start off, like, imagine the Luigi's Mansion level. It was a neat idea with how it was introduced in Brawl, but at the same time it felt so fake, because it was trying to give you the illusion that you were fighting across different rooms, but the fact that they had the layout look like some kind of dollhouse kind of ruins the magic of that. So imagine if they made an actual Luigi's Mansion stage where, like, fighting from one room somehow can cause, like, the enemy to crash through a wall and end up in a different room, changing the scenery. And, I mean, that would be really cool. I mean, yes, they would have to try to find workarounds on how the characters would get defeated in those levels, though, because the goal of Super Smash Bros. Is to knock characters out of the arena. But I'm pretty sure they could still find ways to do it, whether it was, you know, like, they could add, like, some kind of window here or there to, act as, like, a death zone for some of these characters. I mean, you know, they have workarounds for so many stages. I mean, they, like, look at the balloon fight, for instance. That's a stage where you can actually walk up to the edge of the screen and pop up on the other end. The only way to die in that level is to be hit forced enough to actually get considered a knockout. So, well, you know, I would love to see more action-based stages, though, that have, like, all these epic, like, transitions. That'd be really epic. More physics-based stages as well. I want to see, like, more destruction. If I'm not mistaken, Brawl, that was, like, one of the first Smash Bros. Games to actually introduce a slight idea, like, kind of like, destruction physics. I mean, you could technically count Melee with, like, some of the Mario bricks, or, like, how in the Metroid stage you can kind of destroy some, like, the little fleshy-looking things that hold the stage together, but aside from that, though, it wasn't until, like, Brawl where you actually felt, like, more of a sense of destruction, seeing, like, things collapse with, like, all these shatters and cracks, and, I felt like the series never went far enough with that, though, unfortunately. I mean, one of the most destructive stages in the series would probably be both Luigi's Mansion and, let's see, the Wrecking Crew stage, but at the same time they feel kind of formulaic, though. Like, it doesn't feel physics-based, it feels like they were just modeled to crumble a certain way. Now, imagine if it was actually more physics-based, where, like, depending on how hard you hit it or where you hit it, it could cause, like, the stage to collapse in a certain way. I mean, that would be a fun idea. I'd love to see them, make a more physics, inspired, like, destruction system in a Super Smash Bros. Game. Well, that's all I have to show for now. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.